Welcome to the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, hosted by me, yours truly, Jeffrey Bellomo, where we discuss all things estate planning and elder law, and well, hey, anything else we want to talk about. Now, on this episode of the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, we are going to talk about the process at Bellomo and Associates, specifically the workshops and all of the education. I want to thank all of you listeners. I have gotten so much feedback. To be completely honest, I didn't think that people were watching and seeing all of these emails come in and text messages from people who are watching the show and hearing it and listening to it. I am just absolutely humbled. And one of the things that I have noticed people have been asking about quite a bit lately is trying to get a better understanding of all of the workshops. So I thought I would just take time, go over the workshops and explain why a person might go into a specific workshop and what you will learn in the workshop. Now, before we get into all of that, I just want to remind everybody, as I do on every show, please do not take what you hear from this show or any other show for that matter to constitute legal advice. If you are looking for legal advice specific to a situation, please call a lawyer licensed in the state that you reside in, who practices in the area of law that you are looking for advice in, and meet with them, and then and only then should you constitute that as legal advice. This show and any other show should be looked at for information, entertainment, and educational purposes only. And at Bellomo and Associates, we offer free educational workshops. We offer free workshops in the areas of estate planning, crisis Medicaid planning, life care planning, special needs planning, as well as administration after a person passes away for both probate and trust administration. And that is specifically what we're going to talk about today, and learning a little more about the specific workshops and the process at Bellomo and Associates. All right, I'm really excited about this, mostly because you're asking for it, and mostly because the listeners are sending messages and trying to understand the differences. People are seeing me, asking me which workshops to attend, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. So let's go ahead and take a little bit of time and break down the workshops and talk about which one may be the best fit for you. And a reminder, why are workshops so important to me and to the firm? Because at Bellomo and Associates, we want what happened to my family not to happen to yours. I was in a situation where we were looking for education and information and paying lawyers $300 an hour. And really, frankly, they still didn't want to give us the information or the education because they were afraid that we wouldn't hire them. It really left a bad taste for me. And so now here I am, 20 plus years later, still doing what I envisioned, which was free educational workshops. If you have not heard my purpose and listen to information, please go to our website at www.bellomoassociates.com. That is B as in boy, ELLOMO, associates.com. And the number to the office is 717-845-5390. And the office will certainly be able to assist you as well. All right, now, probably the staple workshop that we're probably the most well known for would be our estate planning workshop, or what we call our pre-planning workshop. Probably second to that would be the Medicaid Crisis Planning Workshop. The way that I describe this is in the form of a V. So if you can imagine a V, if the left side of the V was pre-planning and the right side of the V was crisis planning or Medicaid crisis planning, that would give you the visual of what it would look like. Now, when the V goes out, it goes apart, right? That is what a V is. It kind of goes away from each other. And that is a little important tip, will also help people to understand the difference between pre-planning and crisis planning. Simply stated, crisis planning will be for people whose loved one will need skilled level care, I would say within the next 6 months to a year. If someone in your life needs care skilled level in the next 6 months to a year, probably the best workshop for you is the Crisis Medicaid Workshop. Now, what does skilled level care mean? Well, they base the different levels of care on activities of daily living. So the activities of daily living are eating, bathing, dressing, toileting, transferring, walking. If you need assistance with several of those, or really need a deep assistance in those, that is going to rise to the level of skilled level care. Now, if you want to know those specifics, please go to that workshop. They'll teach you all about it and teach you the different levels of care. For this workshop or for this podcast, I just wanted to give an overview of that's what determines whether somebody is independent, assisted, or personal care, or whether they're skilled level care. In this context, I am only talking about someone needing skilled level care in the home or in a nursing facility within the next 6 months to a year. That I would tell them to go to the Medicaid Crisis Workshop. If somebody feels as though they have time, they have years, hopefully an infinity, an unlimited amount of time, but at minimum, at least a couple years that they will not need skilled care. I would say in that case, I'd probably go to the pre-planning workshop to really get an idea of what estate planning is, get an overview of the different documents, get an understanding of what pre-planning is, what can be offered, what are some things you should think about in the long term. That is probably the two main workshops. And the reason that I do them in a V is, for example, if I do pre-planning and we do financial power, medical power, living will, last will and testament, maybe we do a revocable trust, maybe we do an asset protection trust. If we are particularly looking to protect assets, we need those assets to be funded in the trust 5 years if we want them to be 100% protected. So that is why pre-planning is so important to get started today, right? Because you want to get that clock going so that you can get that clock going. You're trying to shorten that 5-year period and get as close to 5 years as possible. Now, when we always are asked, when should a person do the trust? And, of course, we always joke 5 years and 1 day before you need long-term care. And, of course, they laugh because you realize you can't predict that or plan that. And then the next best time is tomorrow, because we never know when that clock is going to end. But if we know that we're not certain, some guidelines that I always tell people is, if you think you could make it 2 years and not need skilled care in the home or the nursing home, in my mind, it's worth it. Because currently in the state of Pennsylvania, we still do have crisis options, which is that other crisis Medicaid workshop, which is the right side of the V, meaning I have a fallback. I have a way that if it didn't work in pre-planning, I could hop over to crisis planning. Now, first things first, those two lands or those two practice areas, pre-planning and crisis planning, have absolutely nothing to do with each other. I will repeat that. Pre-planning and crisis planning have absolutely nothing to do with each other. The only connection between those two is that in order to do crisis planning, I need a valid power of attorney, financial power of attorney in place that authorizes asset protection and asset preservation planning. As long as I have that, which that is done in the pre-planning context, then I can hop over to the crisis Medicaid context and get all of those planning done and get all of that done. But the rules have nothing to do with each other. In fact, the reason that I use the V is to show that once I go out in pre-planning and I'm out here with a trust, if I needed to come back to crisis, I would have to come back to the beginning, undo what we did, come back to the start, and then go down crisis. And again, the rules have nothing to do with each other. What I find is people try to understand the crisis rules based upon the knowledge that they have from the pre-planning workshops. They have absolutely nothing to do with each other. They're not similar. They don't calculate the same. They don't do the same. They don't have the same results. So on the crisis side, yes, in the state of Pennsylvania currently, we are still able to protect 100% of assets for a spouse and at least 50% of assets for a single individual, widow, or widowed. So there is definitely stuff that can be done if an individual needs skilled care in the home or in the nursing home. And there's an entire workshop that is dedicated solely to Medicaid crisis planning to be able to teach that. And then at the end of that workshop, you will be getting a consultation with a team member to explain the options, discuss the costs, discuss what goes into it. Now, one thing I do want to remind everybody of, or for some of you maybe state it for the first time, in our workshop, for years, we have had a picture that I love. And to my knowledge, it's still in there, and I just think it really sums everything up. The picture is of an individual laying on a hammock in the sun in the summer with a drink. And that is pre-planning, right? You're planning ahead. There's no stress. You have all your faculties. You're thinking clearly. You're planning for the future. Reasonably priced, very low stress, very low kind of panic. Things are good. Then there's the picture of the person in crisis who is literally pulling his hair out. That is the difference between the two. Now, one thing I do want to also state is that crisis planning is expensive, it is stressful, and it is emotional. Now remember, this only comes into play when a person needs skilled care. So if we're in home and we're needing significant skilled care, we could be looking at $20,000 a month. If we're in a nursing facility, we could be looking at $15,000 a month. So certainly, most of the stress is caused by the fact that a loved one needs that level of care that is going to cost us that much money. So that's the start of it. And then if we're in crisis, we need to collect 5 years of statements of every account, bank statements, checking, savings, money markets. You need statements on the retirement accounts. So it does become overwhelming because here you are having a family member needing that level of care. Presumably you're visiting, or if they're in the home, you're providing care probably. People are rotating through. Very stressful. Very, very time sensitive as well, because if the average, in the state of Pennsylvania in 1 month in a nursing facility is $14,676 a month, we're talking real dollars. We're talking every day that goes by, significant wealth is coming out of the bank account, meaning we have to act fast. We have to make decisions. So that is where crisis becomes extremely overwhelming. Recently, a client said to me, why is crisis planning more expensive than pre-planning? Well, a lot of reasons. Probably the most of which is crisis also implies fast. Crisis implies rush. Crisis implies emergency, because every day is so much money going out the door that you have to be able to get it done quickly. So that's one piece. Also, the amount of work to go through every statement to create all of the things that need to be created for the caseworker to be able to go through it easily and get as quickly as an approval as we can is also another thing. And then also knowing how to protect the assets, knowing how to make sure that we can do the 100% for the spouse or the 50% for the single individual. And if you really kind of follow our workshops or listen to our podcasts, I think you'll probably get the feeling that everything that I'm trying to do is to get people to do pre-planning, is to get people to plan ahead. I'm much more passionate about planning ahead and getting our ducks in a row, reducing the stress to the family, than I am trying to really push all right, well, let's protect what we can protect. Although it works, it's definitely a result that is very beneficial to a lot of clients. I have gotten way more hugs, way more cards, way more thank yous after finishing a crisis case than I have pre-planning. But that's okay. I realize that maybe the people who are working with me in the pre-planning context aren't the ones who are really going to appreciate what was done, but it will be the children in the future generations, because that's where they see that benefit. Whereas in the crisis planning, the family member sees it because we're protecting the assets and it's staying in the home. So that's really a big difference between the two. So if I was looking at those two workshops and I was in a situation where I was trying to decide between the two, I would boil that down to, do I think a loved one is going to need skilled care in the home or in a nursing facility in the next 6 months to a year? If my gut reaction to that is yes, I'm going crisis Medicaid. If my answer is no, I doubt it, I think I've got at least a year or two or more, I'd probably go pre-planning, get that base knowledge, get that stuff done first, and then we can always discuss whether or not it makes sense to go the other way. Now, I don't talk much about too many specifically personal things, but one thing that really kind of hit me this year and was really a light bulb for me and an epiphany for me. My father-in-law fell off a stepladder and had a brain bleed as well as a fractured skull. And it was a very, 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 very emotional and stressful ordeal. He was down in Florida at the time with my mother-in-law and ultimately spent a lot of time in the ICU. And we were able to get him up here, which was phenomenal. One of the things that really hit home for me through that entire process, from getting him care in the home, paying for caregivers, setting everything up, the transition up here, was the value of the Bellomo Associates life care planning team. My wife and I did buy a life care plan for my mother-in-law and my father-in-law with Bellomo Associates. The life care planning department has 2 licensed social workers as well as other team members who are there to assist the family. Several years ago, when we created that department, I was extremely excited about it. And I always have been. But I can't say that I truly understood the value until now. And it's unfortunate that I had to go through it personally. But watching the life care planning team come to the home, make sure that it was safe for when he was able to get back from Florida, talk to the doctors, coordinate with the discharge planners, the transition from Florida up to York and coordinating all of that, attending doctor's visits with the family, understanding the medical jargon, the coordination of all of that with the medications, working with my mother-in-law and making sure that the caregivers were doing what they needed to be, working with the caregiving company, making sure that the caregivers were what they needed. Did they show up? All of that. I cannot tell you the peace of mind that that provided. And now I probably am one of the biggest champions for the life care planning team because I truly understand what they do. If you go back to my V analogy, if you think of how the palms of your hands touch in the V, an analogy that I thought of recently was that I think the life care planning team at Bellomo Associates is the palms coming together. They are the glue that holds the entire firm together and is also, I believe, the bridge between whether it's pre-planning or crisis planning. And frankly, while I'm using this in a different context right now, when we talk about crisis planning, mostly in the Medicaid context, I think you could also argue that the special needs trust planning, as well as the administration workshops, whether it be probate or trust administration, would also be a form of crisis. Although it's different than what I was talking about earlier, I think you could certainly understand where if you have a loved one who has a disability receiving public benefits and they are going to lose said benefits, that's a crisis. I lost a family member. They passed away. How am I going to administer the estate? How do I make sure that everybody gets the money that they're supposed to? How do I make sure that as a fiduciary, I am not personally liable? Also a crisis. So if you think of it that way, I look at life care planning as the glue, as the touch between the 2 palms that holds the entire firm together, but also the bridge for the clients to understand what they need. Watching them in action, watching them work, watching them guide, watching them hold our hands and make what was a extremely stressful situation become manageable because they took the stress piece out of it. They do this for a living. Both licensed social workers have a lot of experience. We also have another team member in our firm who is a registered nurse who also was instrumental in understanding different medications and just tying everything together for the family. And I think that if I was in a situation where I had a crisis like that, where somebody was trying to come home, come out of the hospital, we weren't sure how we were going to get care, we weren't sure who the caregivers were going to be, we needed somebody to guide us, that would be life care planning for me. There also is a workshop for life care planning, and it will also teach you everything you need to know about life care planning, what it is, what the firm can offer, and how they can be there for you. And I think what I have also found is that they then, once they are hired and they're working with the family, they're the mechanism in the firm that is letting the left hand know what the right hand is doing. So they're saying, okay, we need to get these documents done, the powers of attorney maybe, which we often consider pre-planning. But hey, they're probably going to end up needing crisis planning. So let's get them into that workshop. Let's get them understanding how to get the 5 years of statements. All of that is done by the glue, by the palms being touched together, which is our life care planning team. You will not find more compassionate, wonderful human beings, and what they can do for your family in navigating all of that cannot be understated. So that would be a great workshop as well, to understand all of the different opportunities and ways that they can assist. And also probably the bridge and the tie between the different areas once we're working with the family, understanding all of the coordination of those different areas. Special needs planning. I touched on it briefly when I was talking about the life care planning and how they are the glue that holds everything together. But the special needs planning workshop would be really for somebody who has a loved one who is already receiving public benefits, whether that be SSI or Medicaid. And if they were to receive an inheritance, or if they were to receive a settlement, or if they worked and they got too much money, if they were going to lose benefits, that would be the Special Needs Trust Workshop. In that workshop, we are going to talk about the difference between first-party special needs trusts, third-party special needs trusts, able accounts, pooled trusts. So we're going to talk specifically on that in that workshop about someone is going to lose benefits if they receive money. That's really the most important thing of that workshop. Now, what I will say is where there's a little bit of overlap with the pre-planning workshop is that in the crisis workshop, we do also talk about third-party special needs trusts, which are trusts that can be set up by other individuals for the person with a disability so that they can keep their benefits in the future. But we also talk about that in the pre-planning workshop, in the estate planning workshop. So in the estate planning workshop, you will learn about third-party special needs trusts because they are included in our planning, and we can make sure that in the future, if a loved one was to receive public benefits from your money, they would be able to keep it. However, as it relates to my person, my child, my loved one is already on benefits and they're going to lose the benefits, that would be the special needs trust. That would be that workshop that you would want to attend to understand how can we do a first party trust or able accounts or pooled trusts. That is really where the value in the special needs workshop is, which is slightly different than just a third party trust, meaning I'm doing my planning for the future. I'm pre-planning, and I happen to have a loved one who has a disability. That will be covered in the pre-planning workshop as well. So that, to me, is the distinction between those two workshops. And then ultimately, the post-death administration workshops are after a loved one passes away. You've reached out to our office to have us provide assistance, whether it's probate administration or trust administration, to carry out the wishes of the loved one, to take care of the inheritance tax return, to take care of any fiduciary returns that have to be done, and make sure that everyone is protected and that the money goes the way that it was supposed to go. The way that we're doing those currently is we do have a workshop we have you call in, we provide that workshop to you, and then we give you a consultation with a team member to discuss your specifics, talk costs, and make sure that we're all on the same page as it relates to what the administration piece would look like. So that is a little bit about the administration workshop. Those ones are typically where we provide a link so that you can watch it in the comfort of your home prior to the consultation that you will get with a team member to discuss the administration piece. So that one probably a little less important about understanding where to go. We'll know how to place you if you call in and say someone passed away. With the special needs trust, what we're listening for there is somebody is currently on benefits, and if they receive this money, the inheritance, the settlement, they're going to lose the benefits. That would be the special needs trust workshop. I'm planning ahead. I have time. I have at least a year or two before I would need skilled care. Maybe I even have a loved one with a disability. And I just need to make sure that when I give money to them at my death, that they're taken care of. That would be the pre-planning workshop. I have a loved one who has a need for skilled care in the home or a nursing facility within the next 6 months to a year. That's going to be the crisis workshop. So I hope that this helped. I really enjoyed it. I don't know that I've ever taken the time to really kind of walk through each. And I'll sort of just do one last thing in terms of where and how would I know if I needed the life care planning. You know, I think that what I would say to you is if there's a loved one that you're just trying to navigate, figure everything out, who is going to need something, whether it be more care in the home, is the house safe for the individual? Is it time to go to nursing? Who's going to coordinate moving them? Who's going to coordinate talking to the doctors, getting the caregivers, staying in touch with the caregiving company, making sure all of that is being handled appropriately? That would be life care planning. You can't go wrong with any of the workshops. My personal feeling is you can never have too much knowledge and information and education. Maybe now is not the time that you're going to pull the trigger and actually do one of those areas, but knowing what it is ahead of time, when there is no stress, when there is no emotional piece, you will be so thankful. Because when you're in a hospital or when you're in a nursing facility, learning all of that, that is not the time to be learning all of that information. Now is the time. Learn it ahead. Learn it when you have time to absorb it and to understand it. And then when it happens, and it is whatever it is going to be, you will be prepared. You will be armed and have the tools that you need to know which way to go. And ultimately, call the office. Let them know your situation. Tell them what's going on. And then we will figure out which workshop to start with. And if it ends up that you end up watching or coming to a couple, that's okay too. Free education is never a bad thing. And so we will certainly make sure that we're comfortable, that you're comfortable with the information. I have had several people recently just tell me, I don't need to know, I don't need to understand. I just need you to do it. And I disagree. I really feel like it's important to have that understanding so that you know that you're doing the right thing for you and your family. And one thing I can tell you is at Bellomo Associates, we have a workshop for that. There is no question. As you heard today, we have pre-planning workshops for planning ahead, crisis Medicaid workshops. We have those life care planning workshops. We have special needs trust workshops for individuals with disabilities who, if they receive an inheritance or a personal injury settlement, are going to lose their money, lose their benefits. That's the special needs trust workshop. And ultimately, if we lose a loved one and they pass away and we need to administer the estate, whether it be probate administration or trust administration, we have a workshop for that. So to summarize, we have a workshop for that. And if you're looking for education, we would love to help you. Please call the office at 717-845-5390 to register for an upcoming workshop, or check us out on the web at www.bellomoassociates.com. That is B as in boy, ELLOMO, associates spelled out with an S.com. I can't thank you enough for being here today. I'm Jeff Bellomo. Thanks for attending the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, hosted by me, yours truly, Jeffrey Bellomo. And until next time, we'll see you real soon.